Let's look ahead then to Bournemouth on Saturday. I mean, Jack, Bournemouth had an absolute stinker of a start this season. And I think a lot of people wrote off Andoni Iraola very quick. I must admit, I was part of I believed the hype when he came in. I was there going like, I think this is a really smart move. I feel like sacking Gary O'Neill was a good decision, and not gonna lie, he had me going for a while, making me doubt my trust in the people that I enjoy reading and listening to online. But eventually, he's managed to crack it, and now Bournemouth, I'd say they're probably one of the hottest teams in the league right now.
Yeah, ish. They're a funny kind of spot right now where they're playing really well and not getting results, which is a bit of a strange place and one that Fulham fans have been in before. But it is a sense that they're right on the up. And look, you've got to give credit to someone like Bill Foley, who's obviously the chairman, for not panicking early into the early days of a new regime and for allowing this to develop, because it was, I mean, I don't think they were ever particularly dreadful at the start of the year, but there were definitely points where it didn't feel like any of the, automatic presses, triggers were working, and teams were finding it relatively easy to play around the Bournemouth press. Now, I watched quite a lot of Rayo Vallecano last year under Iraola, and they were excellent. Really, really impressive, more than the sum of their parts, able to kind of bloody the noses of the big boys at times, pushed for Europe. They were a very, very interesting side, and he did a very, very good job there. And I think that's starting to translate. The way that this Bournemouth team work, the mechanisms, the different shifts he's got going, especially in the midfield, where he's turned Ryan Christie from sort of a fairy number 10 into the most hardworking 8 in the league, is pretty remarkable, to be perfectly honest with you. So quite a lot of players who feel like they're improving as well under him. And obviously, you look at Solanke, he's obviously taking the headlines. I think it was 7 goals last year in the Premier League, 15 this time round already. We're talking about a player who has found his form. And look, I was a very big doubter of Dominic Solanke for long periods of his career. Never really thought that there was that translation from youth level into senior level, but he really does look like he's found something under Iraola that makes him a terror. And look, it's very, very impressive to see what the manager's doing with that side. There's some really, really interesting players, I think, in this Bournemouth lineup. And yeah, they're one of the more intriguing sides in the league this year. You weren't sure quite what you were going to get. And it looks like it's turned around. But as Peter mentioned in part one, that win over Fulham was their last one in the Premier League. They were very unlucky against West Ham. They were absolutely brilliant. They should have been about 5-0 up when West Ham equalised. And whilst they dropped off in the second half, you can understand the frustrations considering how good they were to begin with. And then they drew with Forest as well, which was a little bit less impressive as a performance. But look, I still think there's plenty to like about this Bournemouth side, and there's plenty that Fulham should be wary of as they come to the cottage at the weekend.
Yeah, Peter, have you been surprised by the way that Bournemouth season's gone? The horrendous. It was a really bad start. For me, it all felt like that 2-0 win they got at home to Newcastle. And this was a Newcastle side at the time that were doing pretty well. It felt like it all turned around then because they just went on this mad run after that. Got about 5 wins from the next 6. But yeah, there was a moment where I think everyone thought that Bournemouth were like certainties for relegation alongside Burnley and Sheffield United. It really was that dark at maybe kind of late October, early November.
Yeah, it was. I think it was quite a tense moment because obviously they'd backed Iraola. They'd made changes in the transfer window. It's a new ownership.
And Wolves doing so well, coming to Bournemouth and winning as well. That was a bit like...
That didn't help.
No, obviously everyone's out, got their eye on them, ready to stick the knife in because of the decision they made, understandably, because O'Neill did very well. It was pretty touch and go, like you said. But I think there's also, it's kind of understandable in a way. Iraola's come to a new country. There's the language element. I don't think his assistant came over with him from Rayo. I think that's right.
I think he took over the job.
Which, I think that's a big part. I mean, you see when Marco Silva came to Fulham, he brought his, had 5 members of his backroom team, didn't he? So that makes a big difference. And obviously it's taken a bit of time to impart his ideas for some of these younger players to adapt to the Premier League. And now they look like a really attractive, dangerous, difficult team to play against. And that's what you want to be if you're a club of Bournemouth side. And think there's certainly a good deal of relief that they went on a good run, but they have all the components really now for a strong team that can progress. Likes of Dom Solanke, who is their goal scorer. He's finally living up to the potential that he's been so long touted for. A real hard-working player, and now a goal scorer. I liked Alex Scott. I mean, we saw how well he did when Fulham went on Boxing Day. He's obviously a really clever, intelligent footballer. Justin Kluivert as well. It's just the way those front three sort of intermix, and obviously Kluivert was a Brexit GBE decision away from joining Fulham. Previously.
God damn you, Nigel.
No, well, let's not go that way. It's they've got an attractive team, and I think they'll want to win, because it's when you go on these kind of runs that everything gets a bit more nervous, and obviously Fulham are seeing that themselves. So it makes for quite an interesting game, because it's two teams that do really want to win, probably need a win. Probably Fulham more than Bournemouth, but it should make for a fascinating contest.
I do think it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Philip Billing got sent off. Antoine Semenyo came off injured at half time in the last game. Billing didn't start, so I don't think it's going to cause them all that many problems. In terms of that will be Kluivert who'll take back his starting spot. Sinisterra on one flank, they could play Ouattara instead on the right-hand side and switch his side. I don't think they will. I think they'll go for Tavernier. But I do wonder if actually Semenyo's absence, and even if it is Tavernier in there, allows Fulham an opening, because the one weakness that I look at in this Bournemouth side, and that this is quite basic, because I think that if you looked at a Fulham side for years back and you went, oh, who's the oldest member of the team, and you took a crack at Tim Ream, then you may have struggled. Also, now he's come up from the Championship, maybe we'll be able to attack that side, and they would have come up against it. But I don't think Adam Smith is all that good. And I think that we're looking at Fulham's strongest attacking lineups have always come down that left-hand side, with Robinson bombing on, with Willian, with Tom Kearney combining with the two of them. If they can get overloads on Adam Smith, who is not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not suggesting that he is, but I do think he's probably the weakest member of that back line. I really like Senesi. Zabani, I think, is a real talent. And Lloyd Kelly's having a tremendous season, coming in and out of centre-back and left-back, keeping Milos Kerkez, who I really like, out of the team. I think Smith is the one that Fulham attack, and it's going to be interesting to see how that battle goes down that left-hand side of Fulham's.
Jack, in terms of Fulham lineup, I mean, we've just still not got that much.
What can you do? Who's coming back in?
I mean, you mentioned
Harry Wilson isn't ready yet, is he?
No. Well, I mean, obviously, Marco's press conference might confirm something different, but I don't think so. I would
maybe a Dharma Traore.
I tell you what, though, I must say, you said that Muniz grabbed his first goal on Saturday, and certainly not what I was watching, because the co-commentator said it was this Munoz guy.
I did see that. I don't know who that was, but
this Munoz guy, I think was having a great
Crystal
game.
Palace have just signed at right back.
Yes.
So I was impressed when he started playing up front for us.
Was he not in goal, Munoz? Or am I getting really confused?
It was doing my head in on that. So I was just like, it's not like it's not like it was a difficult spelling. It's like it's literally say it as you see it. Anyway, oh God, I don't know what. Maybe just Kenny Tete as a change.
If Broja starts, then maybe. If he doesn't, then no, I don't think. Like, I also, considering what happened with the end of the Burnley game and Kenny Tete coming on, I can imagine him not playing in this game. But I do think that if Broja starts, it would be very interesting to see if they can start to get that combination going, because I think Fulham will start to cross more again out of nowhere, and it's been something that we haven't really seen this season for right. And also we saw at the start of the season when we tried to do that, didn't work. But I do think it'd be interesting that having an aerial threat in Broja, will Fulham start to dial that back up again? And if so, does that give an opportunity for Kenny Tete to come back into the side? So that I would consider that.
I want to see Broja. I really want to see him play, even if it's an hour, just to see what his movement's like. Because I think you're right, Jack. I think the big difference this year compared to last year is movement in the final third. And it was a problem at the end of last year when Mitrovic was suspended. It was just adjusting to where the new guy is moving. And it's never really felt until Jimenez started to find some form that Fulham had quite worked it out. And then as soon as they did with Jimenez, he's been suspended and now injured. So I'd be interested to see if whether Broja's movements make their crosses look better, whether it means they change their style of cross, as you say. Because Broja's a player who seems to, he's got the physical presence, he's got height, he's got that side to his game. But as you said earlier, Jack, he's quick. He seems quite, he's can be off the shoulder as well, which makes him almost a complete player, which is quite exciting. And clearly he's not reached those heights, particularly since his injury. So it'd be nice to see what that does to the rest of the Fulham attack, because I feel like on the left, which has been Fulham's strength, we've seen Robinson almost improve because he's been doing lower crosses, more cutbacks that seem to work quite well. So does he change? It should be interesting to see what that means and whether, now that he's got a week with the team, if they can start getting onto his wavelength, because sometimes it's natural and it's quick. Other times it can take a bit longer, can't it?
It's also £50 on all of our season tickets if he doesn't hit that amount of games that he needs to play. So it's in all of our interests, I think, for Broja to start on Saturday.
Christ.